Hi guys, Adam from Injury Armour here, coming at you with the second part of the Move More series. Today I want to take a little bit of your time just to explain to you why you maybe in the past have experienced tendon pain from, let's say, running, then stopped your running for 4 to 6 weeks feeling relatively recovered within everyday life. But you then return to your running with almost an immediate return of your pain. Apart from frustrating you significantly, this means that you're then taking more time off. Today I want to talk to you about why this happens in the first place, why taking the period of rest is probably the wrong thing to do, and some small strategies that you can take to stop this from happening in the future. So, the tendons in our body have an amazing ability to adapt. Now that adaptation tends to rely on a few things. First of all, the stresses that you place through them, and then the recovery that you're able to give them. So let's give you a hypothetical scenario. You started running, everything is going pretty well, but your numbers and the overall volume is relatively low. You then start to feel better, fitter, and more able to get out on the roads and enjoy it. What tends to happen, and what I see quite a lot in clinic, is people up their mileage a little bit too quickly. In essence, spiking the amount of work that they do. This can then at times form the onset of some tendon pain, and I'm going to use the example here of patellar tendon pain. Achilles tendon pain would work in the same kind of format. This will then cause you an immediate onset of pain, which may be inhibiting your ability to run. Depending on the individual, one reaction would then be to pull away from your running, expecting that a period of rest, a short period of rest, would result in an immediate improvement, a resolution in the injury, and then you can return to your running. I want to explain why that isn't always the case. Your tendon's capacity to withstand exercise is going to be entirely dependent on the exposure that you've given it over the past couple of months. To give you an example, I don't run at all. If I decided I want to run a marathon in, let's say, 6 months' time, if I built myself up on a gradual training program with adequate rest and nutrition, I would hope that my tendons can adapt to those stresses. If I decide tomorrow I'm going to run a marathon, chances are my tendons are going to be shock loaded and they're going to react by being quite unhappy with an element of inflammation perhaps. Now, what I want to see is a gradual increase in stress and therefore a gradual increase in strength and capacity of that tendon. If we use the example I gave you just now of the potential running exposure increasing and therefore pain starting, we would perhaps see this as an immediate or initial gradual increase, but then a little bit of a spike. If we say this is the point where you started to develop your tendon pain, and then the point that you stopped exercising and stopped training, we can presume that after that point of stopping training, your tendon strength is probably going to either plateau, but more realistically start to decrease, if the stress that you're putting through that tendon is no longer keeping it where it needs to be. This is where too long resting can cause the problem. If you rest for too long, granted the pain may stop because you're giving it adequate recovery, that strength may drop below the point that you were building at before. If that drops below it, after your period of rest, although you may be feeling relatively recovered with everyday life, when you return to run again, your strength is going to be below the capacity that it was before. Now what that can cause is that can cause the same reaction of an inflammatory response within that tendon, and that same reaction of an overload phenomenon to then cause you the same pain again. So what we tend to see in patients is that they end up developing this feature where they rest, try to run again, cause pain, they then rest again, try to run again, cause pain, with all the while gradually diminishing kind of exposure or gradually decreasing distances that they can cope with. So how do we break the cycle? The way that we break the cycle is not just to rest. Granted, we want to rest from the irritable stimulus, but what we need to do is while we're resting from the irritable stimulus, we need to be gradually exposing the tendon to a stimulus of strengthening, so that while we're not aggravating it, we're actually getting it stronger. So it never drops down below this level. Once the body is then comfortable and you're happy to do it, hopefully in line with your physio's advice, you can then get back to gradual running distances. I'm now going to show you a few examples of some basic exercises that you can do to keep that strength where it needs to be and to hopefully build it. We're going to use the example of knee tendon. Okay, so your first exercise is going to be something called a banded terminal knee extension. It may not look unbelievably difficult, but it's a really nice way to get some low-level load back through your quadriceps, sending some positive stress through that tendon. So the setup should look like this. Get yourself a resistance band, attach it to something that's not going to go anywhere, pop your foot or your leg inside the band. Now you want to put the height of the band around the back of your knee, in the same position where in the playground back in school, if someone was to nudge you in the back of the knee, you'd kind of collapse. Set up, you can either be in a squat stance or you can be in a stride stance, one foot in the front of the other. I personally prefer the stride stance. From there then, let the band take your knee into flexion before you then drive it back, squeezing those quadriceps, trying to stretch that band as far as possible. Holding it for a good 3 to 5 seconds before slowly contracting back. Numbers wise, it's difficult for me to prescribe without seeing you, but generally we're going to err on doing higher reps here. So I would say something like 12 to 15 repetitions, holding it for a good 3 to 5 seconds in this contracted position. So that's your banded term. So for exercise number 2, we're looking at a decline squat. Now when you've got pain around your knees, squatting, lunging, to be fair, they can be some of the most irritable exercises. That doesn't mean that we should completely condemn the movement though. I quite like to get people decline squatting, which actually puts more stress through that knee, but that doesn't mean we go full depth. I want it to vary depending on your discomfort, making sure that your pain levels are remaining within kind of 3 out of 10. If you haven't got a decline board like this at home, which I presume most of you don't, get yourself a book to pop your heels up onto an elevation, or get your best pair of high heels out and do them in there, making sure you're stable. Feet on the decline board. From there then, try and keep your torso as upright as possible. Squat down partially depending on your discomfort. And back up. I generally like to have a decent isometric hold at the bottom of about 2 to 3 seconds. You can use the same contraction that you did with the terminal knee extension when you stand up tall, really driving those quadriceps back. Numbers, again, difficult for me to prescribe. Something between 8 to 12 would be a good number to start, but it's going to depend on your ability to add load to it and your discomfort. That's your decline squat. So for the last exercise in this demo, I'm going to talk you through a more advanced exercise. So if you can remember the graph that I showed you, the capacity that we need to get you back to is going to depend on the distances that you're looking to run. But there's always value through the rehab process in taking someone from the very early exercises all the way up through kind of more advanced exercises. So the robustness and the capacity is there to withstand more when you get back out on the roads. So this is basically going to be called a skater squat, but we're going to do a decline skater squat. Setup again may look complicated here. You can make it as easy or difficult depending on your capacity. I like to use the decline board again. So again, book to raise your heel up or something similar. We're going to do a counterbalance version here. So 2 dumbbells out in front of you, but that could be anything. That could be a box, a bag with some weights in, a pet if you've got one that's about the right weight. Behind you, I like to give something as a bit of a target, also a bit of a safety net if you're not too confident with the movement. It doesn't need to be as low as this either. It could be the depth that you feel comfortable to perform. Let me walk you through. So take hold of the dumbbells, stand on one leg on the decline board. From there then you're looking to drop back into a single leg squat, but with this rear leg you're looking to target the block or in my case the BOSU behind you. It should look like this. As you go down, you should be at a stage where you're comfortable to drive that knee forwards. And again, going right back to the basics, you don't want to forget about that squeeze up in this top position that we got from the terminal knee extension. So that's your decline, counterbalance skater. More advanced exercise, but perfect if you're near that late stage of rehab, looking to return back to the roads again. This has been your second section of the Move More series. Hopefully you tune in again soon. I've been Adam from Injury Armour.